Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert T. Kiyosaki. Chapter 2. Lesson 1. The rich don't work for money. Dad, can you tell me how to get rich? My dad put on the evening paper. Why do you want to get rich, son? Because today Jimmy's mom drove up in their new Cadillac and they were going to their beach house for the weekend. He took 3 of his friends, but Mike and I weren't invited. They told us we weren't invited because we were poor kids. They did? My dad asked. Yeah, they did, I replied in a hurt tone. My dad silently shook his head, pushed his glasses up the bridge of his nose, and went back to reading the newspaper. I stood waiting for an answer. The year was 1956. I was 9 years old. By some twist of fate, I attended the same public school where the rich people sent their kids. We were primarily a sugar plantation town. The managers of the plantation and the other affluent people of the town, such as doctors, business owners, and bankers, sent their children to this school, grade 1 to 6. After grade 6, their children were generally sent off to private schools because my family lived on one side of the street. I went to this school. Had I lived on the other side of the street, I would have gone to different school with kids from families more like mine. After grade 6, these kids and I would go on to the public intermediate and high school. There was no private school for them or for me. My dad finally put on the paper. I could tell he was thinking. Well, son, he began slowly. If you want to be rich, you have to learn to make money. How do I make money? I asked. Well, use your head, son, he said, smiling. Which really meant, that's all I'm going to tell you. Or, I don't know the answer, so don't embarrass me. A partnership is formed. The next morning, I told to my best friend, Mike, what my dad had said. As best I could tell, Mike and I were the only poor kids in the school. Mike was like me in that he was in the school by a fate. Someone had drawn a jig in the line for a school district, and we would have been in school with the rich kids. We weren't really poor, but we felt as if we were because all other boys had new baseball gloves, new bicycles, new everything. Mom and dad provided us with the basics like food, shelter, clothes. But that was about it. My dad used to say, if you want to something, work for it. We wanted things, but there was not much work available for 9 years old boys. So what do we do to make money? Mike asked. I don't know, I said. But do you want to be my partner? He agreed, and so on that Saturday morning, Mike became my first business partner. We spent all morning coming up with ideas on how to make money. Occasionally, we talked about all the cool guys at Jimmy's beach house having fun. It hurt a little, but hurt was good, for it inspired us to keep thinking of a way to make money. Finally, that afternoon, a bolt of lightning came through our heads. It was an idea Mike had gotten from a science book he had read. Excitedly, we shook hands, and the partnership now had a business. For the next several weeks, Mike and I ran around our neighborhood, knocking on doors and asking our neighbors if they would have saved their toothpaste tubes for us. With puzzled looks, most adults consented with a smile. Some asked us what we are going to do, to which we replied, "We can't tell you, it's a business secret." My mom grew distressed as the weeks wore on. We had a selected site next to her washing machine as the place we would stockpile our raw materials. In a brown cardboard box that one time held catsup bottles, our little pile of used toothpaste tubes began to grow. Finally, my mom put her foot down. The sight of her neighbor's messy, crumbled, used toothpaste tubes had gotten to her. "What are you boys doing?" she asked. "And I don't want to hear again that it's business secret. Do something with this mess or I'm going to throw it out." Mike and I pleaded and begged, explaining what we would soon have enough, and then we could begin production. We informed her that we were waiting on a couple of neighbors to finish using up their toothpaste so we could have their tubes. Mom granted us a 1-week extension. The date to begin production was moved up. The pressure was on. My first partnership was already being threatened with an eviction notice from our warehouse space by my mom. It became Mike's job to tell the neighbors to quickly use up their toothpaste, saying their dentist wanted them to brush more often anyway. I began to put together the production line. One day, my dad drove up with a friend to see 2 9-year-old boys in the driveway with the production line operating at full speed. There was a fine white powder everywhere. On a long table were small milk cartons from school, and our family's hibachi grill was glowing with red-hot coals at maximum heat. Dad walked up cautiously, having to park the car at the base of the driveway, since the production line blocked the corridor. As he and his friend got closer, they saw a steel pot sitting top of the coals, with the toothpaste tubes being melted down. In those days, toothpaste did not come in plastic tubes. The tubes were made up of lead. So once the paint was burnt off, the tubes were dropped on a small steel pot, melted until they became liquid, and with my mom's pot holder, we were pouring the lead through a small hole in the top of the milk cartons. The milk cartons were filled with plaster of Paris. The white powder everywhere was the plaster before we mixed it with water. In my haste, I had knocked the bag over, and the entire area looked like it had been hit by a snowstorm. The milk cartons were the outer container of plaster of Paris molds. My dad and his friend watched as we carefully poured the molten lead through a small hole in the top of the plaster of Paris cube. "Carefully," my dad said. I nodded with looking up. Finally, once the pouring was through, I put the steel pot down and smiled at my dad. "What are you boys doing?" he asked with a cautious smile. "We were doing what you told me to do." "We are going to be rich," I said. "Yeah," said Mike, grinning and nodding his head. "We are partners." "And what is in those plaster models?" Dad asked. "Watch," I said. "This should be a good batch." With a small hammer, I tapped at the steel that divided the cube in half. Cautiously, I pulled up the top of the plaster mold, and a lead nickel fell out. Oh my God, my dad said. You're casting nickels out of lead. That's right, Mike said. We're doing as he told us to do. We are making money. My dad's friend turned and burst into laughter. My dad smiled and shook his head. Along with the fire and a box of spent toothpaste tubes, in front of him were two little boys covered with white dust and smiling from ear to ear. He asked it to put everything down and sit with him on the front step of our house. With a smile, he gently explained what the word counterfeiting meant. Our dreams were dashed. You mean this is illegal? Asked Mike in a quavering voice. Let them go, my dad's friend said. They might be developing a natural talent. My dad glared at him. Yes, it is illegal, my dad said gently. But you both boys have shown great creativity and original thought. Keep going. I'm really proud of you. Disappointed, Mike and I sat in silence for about 20 minutes before we began cleaning up our mess. The business was over on opening day. Sweeping the powder up, I looked at Mike and said, I guess Jimmy and his friends are right. We are poor. My father was just leaving as I said that. Boys, he said, you're only poor if you give up. The most important thing is that you did something. Most people only talk and dream of getting rich. You have done something. I'm very proud of you. I'll say it again. Keep going. Don't quit. Mike and I stood there in silence. They were nice words, but we still did not know what to do. So how come you're not rich, Dad? I asked. Because I chose to be a school teacher. School teachers really don't think about being rich. We just like to teach. I wish I could help you, but I really don't know how to make money. Mike and I turned and continued our cleaning up. I know, said my dad. If you boys want to learn how to be rich, don't ask me. Talk to your dad, Mike. My dad? Asked Mike with a scrunched up face. Yeah, your dad. Repeated my dad with a smile. Your dad and I have the same bank account, and he raves about your father. He's told me several times that your father is brilliant when it comes to make money. My dad? Mike asked again in disbelief. Then how come we don't have a nice car and a nice house like the rich kids at school? A nice car and a nice house doesn't necessarily mean you're rich or you know how to make money, my dad replied. Jimmy's dad works for sugar plantation. He's not much different from me. He works for a company and I work for the government. The company buys the car for him. The sugar company is in financial trouble and Jimmy's dad may soon have nothing. Your dad is different, Mike. He seems to be building an empire and I suspect in a few years he'll be a very rich man. With that, Mike and I got excited again with new vigor. We began cleaning up mess caused by our now defunct first business. As we were cleaning, we made plans on how and when to talk to Mike's dad. The problem was that Mike's dad worked long hours and often did not come home until late. His father owned a warehouse, a construction company, a chain of stores, and 3 restaurants. It was the restaurants that kept him out late. Mike caught the bus home after we had finished cleaning up. He was going to talk to his dad when he got home that night and asked him if he could teach us how to become rich. Mike promised to call as soon as he had talked to his dad, even if it was late. The phone rang at 8:30 p.m. "Okay," I said, "next Saturday," and put the phone down. Mike's dad had agreed to meet with Mike and me. At 7:30 Saturday morning, I caught up the bus to poor side of town. The lesson began. "I'll pay you 10 cents an hour." Even by 1956 pay standards, 10 cents an hour was low. Michael and I met with his dad that morning at 8 o'clock. He was already busy and had been at work for more than an hour. His construction supervisor was just leaving in his pickup truck as I walked up to his simple, small, and tidy home. Mike met me at the door. "Dad's on the phone, and he said to wait on the back porch," Mike said as he opened the door. The old wooden floor creaked as I stepped across the threshold of his aging house. There was a cheap mat just inside the door. The mat was there to hide the years of wear from countless footsteps that the floor had supported. Although clean, it needed to be replaced. I felt claustrophobic as I entered the narrow living room, which was filled with old, musty, overstuffed furniture that today would be collector's item. Sitting on the couch were 2 women, a little older than my mom. Across from the women sat a man in workman's clothes. He wore khaki slacks and khaki shirt, neatly pressed but without starch, and polished workbooks. He was about 10 years older than my dad. I would say about 45 years old. They smiled as Mike and I walked past them, heading for the kitchen, which led to the porch that overlooked the backyard. I smiled back shyly. "Who are those people?" I asked. "Oh, they work for my dad. The older man runs his warehouse, and the women are the managers of the restaurants. And you saw the construction supervisor, who is working on a road project about 550 miles from here. His other supervisor, who is building a truck of houses, had already left before you got here." "Does this go on all time?" I asked. "Not always, but quite often," said Mike, smiling as he pulled up a chair to sit down next to me. I asked him if I would teach us make money. Mike said. "Oh, and what did he say to do that?" I asked with cautiously. "Well, he had a funny look on his face at first, and then he said that he would make us an offer." "Oh," I said, rocking my chair back against the wall. I sat there perched on 2 rare legs on the chair. Mike did the same thing. "Do you know what the offer is?" I asked. "No, but we'll soon find out." Suddenly, Mike's dad burst there through the rickety screen door on the porch. Mike and I jumped to our feet, not out of respect, but because we were startled. "Ready, boys?" Mike's dad asked as he pulled up a chair to sit down with us. We nodded our heads as we pulled our chairs away from the wall to sit in front of him. He was a big man, about 6 feet tall and 200 pounds. My dad was taller, about the same weight, and 5 years older than Mike's dad. They sort of looked alike, though not of the same ethnic makeup. Maybe their energy was similar. Mike says you want to learn to make money. Is that correct, Robert? I nodded my head quickly, but with a little intimidation. He had a lot of power behind his words and smiled. Okay, here is my offer. I'll teach you, but I won't do it classroom style. I won't do it classroom style. You work for me, I'll teach you. You don't work for me, I won't teach you. I can teach you faster if you work, and I'm wasting my time if you just want to sit and listen, like you to do in school. That's my offer. Take it or leave it. Yeah, may I ask a question first? I asked. No, take it or leave it. I have got too much work to do to waste my time. If you can't make up your mind decisively, then you will never learn to make money anyway. Opportunities come and go. Being able to know when to make quick decisions is an important skill. You have an opportunity that you asked for. School is beginning or it's over in 10 seconds. Mike's dad said with a teasing smile. Take it, I said. Take it, said Mike. Good, said Mike's dad. Mr. Martin will be by in 10 minutes. After I am through with her, you ride with her to my superiority and you can begin work. I'll pay you 10 cents an hour and you will work for 3 hours every Saturday. But I have a softball game today, I said. Mike's dad lowered his voice to a stern tone. Take it or leave it. I'll take it, I replied, choosing to work and learn instead of playing softball. 30 cents later. By 9 a.m. on a beautiful Saturday morning, Mike and I were working for Mr. Martin. She was a kind of patient woman. She always said that Mike and I reminded of her 2 sons who were grown and gone. Although kind, she believed in hard work and she kept us working. She was a taskmaster. We spent 3 hours taking canned goods off the shelves and with a feather duster, brushing each can to get the dust off and then restacking them neatly. It was excruciating, boring work. Mike's dad, whom I call my rich dad, owned 9 of these little superiors with large parking lots. They were yearly version of 7-Eleven convenience stores, little neighborhood grocery stores where people bought items such as milk, bread, butter, and cigarettes. The problem was, this was Hawaii. Before air conditioning, and the stores could not close its doors because of heat. On 2 sides of the store, the doors had to be widened, open to the road and parking lot. Every time a car drove by or pulled into the parking lot, dust would swirl and settle in the store. Hence, we had a job for as long as there was no air conditioning. For 3 weeks, Mike and I reported to Miss Martin and worked hard 3 hours. By noon, our work was over and she dropped 3 little dimps in each of our hands. Now, even at the age of 9 in the mid-1950s, 30 cents was not too exciting. Comic books cost 10 cents back then. So I usually spent my money on comic books and went home. By Wednesday of the 4 weeks, I was ready to quit. I had agreed to work only because I wanted to make money from Mike's dad. And now I was slave for 10 cents an hour. On top of that, I had not seen Mike's dad since that first Saturday. And also, my educated poor dad told me that damn what I deserve. At least 25 cents an hour. My poor dad told me that if I did not get a rise, I was quit immediately. You don't need that damn job anyway, said my poor dad with indignity. At 8 o'clock Saturday morning, I was going through the same rickety door of Mike's house. Take a seat and wait in line. I looked around the room and did not see Mike anywhere. 45 minutes went, and I was steaming. The two women had met with him and left 30 minutes later. An older gentleman was in there for 20 minutes and was also gone. Finally, 15 minutes later, at exactly 9 o'clock, Rich Dad walked out of his office, said nothing, and signaled with his hands for me to enter his dignity office. I understand. You want to race or you are going to quit, Rich Dad said as he swelled in his office chair. Well, you're not keeping your end of the bargain, I blurted out neatly in tears. It was really frightening for a 9-year-old boy to confront a grown-up. You said that you would teach me if I worked for you. Well, I have worked for you. I have worked hard. I have given up my baseball games to work for you. And you don't keep your word. You haven't taught me anything. You're a crook like everyone in the town thinks you are. Rich Dad rocked back in his wheelchair, hands up to his chin, somewhat staring at me. It was like he was studying me. Not bad, he said. In less than a month, you sounds like most of my employees. What? I asked, not understanding what he was saying. I continued with my grievance. I thought you were going to keep your end of the bargain and teach me. Instead, you want to torture me. That's cruel. Really, that's cruel. I am teaching you, the Rich Dad said quietly. We have child labor's law, you know. My dad works for government, you know. Wow, said Rich Dad. Now you sound just like most of my people who used to work for me. People I have either fired or they have quit. Does teaching mean talking or a lecture? Rich Dad asked. Well, yes, I replied. That's how they teach in schools, he said smiling. But that is now how life teaches you. And I would say that if life is best teacher of all. What is this man talking about? I asked myself silently. If you learn life's lesson, you will do well. If not, life will just continue to push you around. I had no idea what he was talking about. Life pushes all of us around. Some give up, others fight. A few learned that lesson, moved on. Rich Dad stood and showed that creaky old wooden window that needed repair. If you learn this lesson, you will grow into a wise, wealthy and happy young man. If you don't, you will spend your life blaming a job, low pay or your boss for your problems. You will live life hoping for that big break that will solve all your money problems. Rich Dad continued. Or if you're the kind of person who has no guts, you just give up every time life pushes you. Some people might say that, smiled Rich Dad. I would say that I just gave you a taste of life. What taste of life? I asked, still angry, but now curious, even ready to learn. You boys are the first people that have ever asked me to teach them how to make money. I have more than 150 employees and not one of them asked me what I know about money. I sat there listening intently. So when Mike told me about you want to learn how to make money, I decided to design a course that was close to real life. So what is the lesson I learned from working for 10 cents an hour? I asked. Rich Dad rocked back and laughed heartily. Finally, after his laughing stopped, he said, "You would best change your point of view. Stop blaming me, thinking I am the problem. If you think I am the problem, then you have to change me. If you realize that you are the problem, then you can change yourself. Learn something and grow wiser." Most people want everyone else in the world to change but themselves. Let me tell you, it is easier to change yourself than everyone else. "I don't understand," I said. "Don't blame me for your problem," Rich Dad said, growing impatient. "But you only pay me 10 cents. So what are you learning?" Rich Dad asked, smiling. "That you are cheap," I said with a slight grin. "See, you think I am the problem," said Rich Dad, "but you are. Well, keep that attitude and you learn nothing. Keep the attitude that I am the problem, and what choices do you have? Well, if you don't pay me more or show me more respect and teach me, I'll quit." "Well put," Rich Dad said. And that's exactly what most people do. They quit and looking for another job, better opportunity and higher pay. Actually thinking that a new job or more pay will solve the problem. But most case it won't. So what will solve the problem? I asked. "Just to take this measly 10 cents an hour and smile." Rich Dad smiled. "That's what the other people do. Just accept a paycheck knowing that they and their family will struggle financially. But that's all they do. Waiting for a raise, thinking that more money will solve problem. Most just accept it. And some take a second job, working harder, but again accepted small paycheck." I sat starting at the floor, beginning to understand the lesson Rich Dad was presenting. I could sense it was tasty of life. Finally, I looked up and repeated the question. "So what will solve the problem?" "This," he said, tapping me gently on the head. "This stuff between your ears." It was at the moment that Rich Dad shared his pivotal point of view that separated him from his employees and my poor dad and led him to eventually become one of the richest men in Hawaii, while my highly educated but poor dad struggled financially all his life. Rich Dad said over and over this point of view, which I call lesson number 1. The poor and middle class work for money, the rich have money work for them. On the bright Saturday morning, I was learning a completely different point of view from what I had been taught by my poor dad. At the age of 9, I grew aware that both dads wanted me to learn. Both dads encouraged me to study, but not the same thing. My highly educated dad recommended that I do what he did. My rich dad continued my first lesson. "I am glad you got angry about working for 10 cents an hour. If you had not gotten angry and had gladly accepted, I would have to tell you that I could not teach you." "So is that why they'll take a job with a low par?" I asked. "Yes," said Rich Dad. "Some people say I exploit people because I don't pay as much as the sugar plantation or government. I say the people exploit themselves. It's their fear, not mine." "But don't you feel you should pay them more?" I asked. "I don't have to. And besides, more money will not solve problem. Just look at your dad. He makes lots of money and he still can't pay his bills. More people give more money, only get into more debt. So that's why the 10 cents an hour," I said smiling. "That's a part of lesson. That's right, smiled Rich Dad. You see, your dad went to school and got an excellent education so he could get a high paying job, which he did, but he still has a money problem because he never learned anything about money at school. On top of that, he believes in working for money. And you don't? I asked. No, not really, said Rich Dad. If you want to learn to work for money, then stay in school. That is a great place to learn to do that. But if you want to learn how to have money work for you, then I'll teach you that, but only if you want to learn. Wouldn't everyone want to learn that? I asked. No, said Rich Dad. Simply because it's easier to learn to work for money, especially if fear is your primary emotion when the subject of money is discussed. I don't understand, I said with a frown. Don't worry about that for now. Just know that it's fear that keeps most people working a job. The fear of not paying their bills, the fear of being fried, the fear of not having enough money, the fear of starting over. That's the price of studying to learn profession or trade and then working for money. Most people become slave to money and then get angry at their boss. I felt like it wasn't enough. It seemed like nothing. I was disappointed, I said. And that is how most employees feel when they look at their paycheck, especially after all tax and other deductions are taken out. At least you got 100%. Rich Dad sat there in silence. I guess he wanted me to listen instead of jabber away at the mouth. I said, there is a lot to learn. So my dad has tax problems because he doesn't understand money. I asked, confused. Look, said Rich Dad, taxes are just one small section and learn how to have money work for you. I nodded my head. Good, said Rich Dad. Now get back to work. This time I'll pay you nothing. What? I asked, amazement. You heard me, nothing. You will work the same 3 hours every Saturday, but this time you will not be paid 10 cents per hour. You said you wanted to learn, not work for money, so I'm not going to pay you anything. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I have already had this conversation with Mike. He is already working, dusting and stacking canned foods for free. You would better hurry and get them back there. That's not fair, I shouted. You have got to pay something. You said you wanted to learn. If you don't learn this now, you will grow up to like the 2 women and the older man sitting in my living room working for money and hoping that I don't fire them, or like your dad earning lots of money only to be in debt up in his eyeballs, hoping more money will solve problem. If that's what you want, I'll go back to your original deal of 10 cents an hour. Or you can do what most people grow up to do. Complain that 3 is not enough pay. Quit and go looking for another job. I stood there still, not believing what a raw deal I had been handed. Here I came to ask for a raise, and now I was being told to keep work for nothing. Rich Dad tapped me on head again, said, use this, now get out of here and get back to work. So this is the lesson 1. Rich don't work for money.